Warning. Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Doctors, what was the best excuse you've heard for someone having something stuck in their ass? I am a nurse, a male as well. Guy came to my hospital with a cue ball stuck in his rectum. Said him and his wife were having sex and this happened. Made no excuses and showed no shame. ER doc was unable to remove it with forceps and he had to get anesthesia to have a minor surgical procedure to get it out. My job was basically to just go through a pre-surgical checklist and send him on his way. When I'm done, he shouts excitedly, "All right, let's get this ball rolling." I almost died laughing. It was near the end of my shift and I always wonder what happened to him. I'm sure he did fine and is back to having amazing kinky sex with his wife. Guy told me he was constipated, so he stuck the broom handle up there to break up the poop. I almost believed him. Edit, it was half of a broom handle, cut off and wrapped in electrical tape. All the way inside his ass. A college friend who is an OR nurse said the best thing she ever witnessed was a small snow globe with the message "World's Greatest Dad" on the inside. Jesus Christ, my moment has come. A friend of mine used to work in a dispatch call center for emergency services. In these call centers there needs to be a triage nurse on site to deal with life-threatening situations. So my mate tells me about this story she had, where a man came in with a garden gnome up his hoop. His story was that he went shopping and locked himself out the house, so needed to climb back in through the second floor window, fell back, and got entered by the gnome. I mean, the gnome was inside his pants, like there was no gnome-shaped hole in his pants, but whatever, let's call it a miracle. So anyway, they get this gnome out, fishing rod and all, patch him up and send him on his way. 3 hours later a different dude comes in with the same problem and the same story. After cutting through the bullshit they determined the two blokes had been nomming each other, realized they both needed doctors, arranged to go to different hospitals with this 200 IQ story, and one of them got mixed up. Still makes me laugh to this day. Edit, me no type good. When I was a student working in an ER, a guy came in with an unraveled wire hanger stuck and hooked up there. He said he was trying to fish out the vibrator he lost. 'Twas clear as day, upon the X-ray. The vibrator wriggled and buzzed. Up between the cheeks, but pushed in too deep. Though now we knew right where it was. I pulled out the tube, and squeezed out some lube. All over my forceps and glove. Told him to lean forward, he complied without a word. And deep up inside did I shove. I've done this before, I knew how for sure. I've worked the ER for a while. And out came the toy, to the glee of the boy. Thanks, doc, he winced with a smile. Saw someone with a remote control stuck way up in their colon. She said she was getting herself ready for anal sex with her boyfriend and then it got stuck. The kicker was that she showed up to the hospital with her boyfriend and her husband in tow. It always boils down to the person, accidentally, sat on it. The best my dad saw, a former emergency doctor, was a young guy who, accidentally, sat on a giant tub of Vaseline. Accidentally. I asked how doctors record that in their patient files, and the common way to do so is to say, the patient claims to have sat on X object. Edit, my dad's thrilled that his story has touched so many of you. Patient states, stated, followed by a factual description of what you see. Patient states they fell on the dumbbell, carrot, sausage. On examination no visible bruising or lacerations seen related to the fall, clear jelly-like substance seen around the object. Edit, thanks everyone, this has been the most fun I've had on Reddit, but I have to go for now. Apologies to anyone who didn't get a reply. There was a news story in my country. A man went to the ER and they discovered that he drunkenly put 2 hammerheads in his ass, his reasoning being that he ate a jar of preserved cherries with pits and then had abdominal pain and wanted to smash the pits. Guy puts a vibrator, one of the massive cordless wand types, way up there, like a mega seed, and it gets sucked into the sigmoid colon. When he gets to me in the ER I ask him how he was feeling. He answered, "Well doc, I'm way better since the batteries died." Made my night. Guy came in with a cordless phone up his ass, like one of the old school ones from 15 years ago. He said that when he was in the kitchen bending over opening the oven door, someone threw it through his open window and it just went right up. 3 men get stranded on a desert island. After wandering around a while, they are found by some tribesmen. The natives take them back to their hut. The chief tells them, go out into the jungle and collect 10 pieces of fruit. The first guy returns with 10 apples, and the chief says, now shove them all up your ass without showing any emotion, or we'll kill you. He shoves the first up, and is in terrible pain, but shows no emotion, but during the process of pushing up the second, he flinches, and therefore gets shot. The second guy comes back with 10 cherries, and gets told to do the same. He's finding it relatively easy, but when he gets to the 8th, starts laughing hysterically, and gets shot. He meets up with the first guy in heaven, and the first guy asks, "Why did you do that? Why did you laugh?" And the second guy replies, "Well, I nearly finished when I saw the next guy walking up with pineapples." Paramedic, here, had one guy tell me he slipped on a banana peel and landed on the upright base on the floor. He then proceeded to produce a banana peel for good measure. Edit, my first gold and a couple other goodies. I'm really happy that you all enjoy a good laugh from my career this far. Worked on ambulances, not a doctor. Mostly bottles or vegetables. The aubergine was the biggest, but potatoes and carrots seemed to be popular. Ketchup, mayo and glass cola bottles were common at one point. Also one butt plug and a toilet brush. The last two were honest and very distraught. Others all had naked gardening stories. There's an even worse question you haven't asked, which is for things people have shoved up their urethras, only men in my experience. Nurse, I tried to dig something out of my ass with a barbecue skewer. Skewer got stuck, ripped a hole in his intestines. He waited so long to come and he was septic. One stat OR visit and an ICU stay later, please don't call my mom. Guy was tripping hard on LSD. So I actually once did fall naked in my bedroom and my ass cheek smashed hard onto the end of a small dumbbell that was angles up at 45 degrees. I'm coming to realize after reading all of this that had it hit the bullseye, no one would have fucking believed me. My cousin who is a doctor once told me that when you really do fall on something and it goes up there, it's not pretty, there is tearing and overall injury, when there is no injury where it went and you know it was likely eased in and that's how they know that I fell on it story is bullshit. A friend of mine works at reception in an ER, she actually had a story about a guy who came in with a dumbbell in his rectum. Although he was considered high priority, they were super busy and there was nowhere near the front to stand, so she told him to wait in the rear. Not an excuse, but a medic told me that they have contests about what is the most unexpected thing they pulled out of butts. The winner was a guy that put an electric Christmas decoration, the ones you wrap around the tree. In her own words, the legend doesn't say whether he plugged it or not. I should have asked what the excuse was for that one. Presented at ER in Sydney with carrot stuck in the ass. Doctor, what happened? Patient, I heard a noise in the garden. Went to investigate. Slipped and fell over. Carrot went up my bum. Doctor, carrots grow upside down out your way, huh? Friend's mum was a nurse. A man came into ER with a cucumber in his bum. Apparently he was vacuuming his fruit shop in the nude and slipped over. Not an ass, but a vagina. I was doing my clinical rotation in 3rd year. Did a cervical assessment on 36W pregnant woman who thought she was in labor, painful cramping, plus discharge. I found 8 gloves of garlic. She thought she could avoid group B strep with it, she read it online. She thought they would dissolve. 1. You can't avoid GBS like this. 2. They turn to slime-mush bulbs. They don't dissolve. She was not in labor, she was responding to an infection. A nasty one. She was admitted for fluids, object removal, meds, and monitoring of fetus for treatment overnight. I finished my 24H shift before the next OB wrapped up. Cramping stopped very soon after we got it all out. Last I saw her, she was just feeling sad and dumb. I felt really awful for her, she was trying to do the right thing for her pregnancy. GBS, gut bacteria found in 1/3 of adults at any time. Some Sioux tries screen for its presence because in rare cases it does nasty things to baby if they get colonized at birth. I had a patient who was trying to treat bacterial vaginosis with garlic cloves. You have a special knowledge of how thankful I was she'd made a little cheesecloth pouch for it first. All came out in one gloriously funky chunk. Garbage had to go out immediately. My sister is a surgical nurse and a guy came into the hospital with a pool noodle shoved up his ass. It was so deep that they had to cut open his abdomen, intestines and colon to cut the foam out of him. He said he fell on it while swimming nude. But when they cut him open, it had a condom stretched over the end of it. When they confronted him, he said, "Please don't tell me, wife." Edit, wow, thank you everyone for the upvotes and awards. This is my sister's favorite OR story to tell. She tells about all the things she's seen after she's had a few drinks, but this one is the best one. My ex is a ER nurse. One night she sent me a pic of her computer of what she was working on. 16-year-old male brought in by his mother. Shoved a sausage up his ass and lost it. Imagine the embarrassment of telling mom, "Hey mom, I lost a sausage in my ass. Can you take me to the ER?" Fucking kids. The best one I've heard is a priest who had peeled a potato and left it on the side for his dinner. He decided to hang the curtains back up while nude. and fell off the step ladder onto it. It was in the UK paper years ago. If I find it, I'll post the sauce. I had one who fell on a can of beans while in the shower. The worst part is that his mom tried to pull it out and couldn't, so they ended up in the emergency room. He was 34 years old. Edit, there was also a guy who came in with abdominal pain and said he couldn't figure out why. When we took an X-ray, we saw tiny seeds floating in his dilated rectum. He had gotten a zucchini up there and chose not to mention it. It wasn't an excuse, and it wasn't the ass. A young lady in Riverside, TX, very heavy meth presence, was dared to stick a live catfish in her vagina. She shoved it in head first. Those who know catfish know they have very sharp dorsal fins. Well, the dorsal fins lodged in the walls of her vagina and became stuck. She came into the ER screaming in pain with a live catfish flopping all willy-nilly out of her privates. I wish I still had a copy of that X-ray. There was a guy who would often come to my friend's ER for Barbie head removals. He had several Barbies he kept in his jacket, held in place by loopholes he had sewn in. They always knew how many heads to look for by how many heads were missing from the Barbies in his coat. A glass water bottle in his ass, and he's desperately trying to find an excuse. Not one would really ask at that point. Actually, he finally said, "I don't remember who put it there. Couldn't you just fell from some stairs or something?" My friend is a nurse. She told me about a guy who came into her ER. He claimed to have fallen out of a tree and a branch went right up his ass. They X-rayed him and he had this perfectly round wooden rod up his ass. When they removed it, they saw that it was sanded, painted and primed. That branch must have come from a genetically modified species of tree. Lol. Not quite the same, but I was in a lecture where someone asked a doctor the strangest foreign body he'd removed, and he said removing a whole carrot from a rectum was pretty memorable. Girl next to me piped up, "OMG, how did someone swallow a whole carrot? Oh, you sweet summer child." Had this elderly guy come in with a cucumber up there. First month of residency, so my attending asks, "Why did you put that up there?" Guy, dead normal, says, "Well, it was just like every Tuesday. I woke up, made some coffee, and sat on a cucumber." Stifling laughter, my attending just said, "Sir, you shouldn't do that anymore." He says, "Okay." We removed it and never saw him again. I went to med school in the deep south. Burly, middle-aged southern gentleman showed up in the ED. Chief complaint, rectal pain. After a full history and physical examination, couldn't ascertain the case of his pain other than him saying, "Feels like something's up there." We decided to start with some X-rays. Before we obtained them, he says, "All right, I'm gonna be square with you." I was walking down the street minding my own business when these thugs jumped me out of nowhere and held me down and stuck a cucumber up my butt. "Please, you got to get it out." I immediately went to get my attending. One surgical consult and GI consult later, a cucumber wrapped in a condom was extracted from this man's rectum. Trying to reduce prolapsed hemorrhoids he developed after a long, arduous poop doctor term. Of course, I wondered how a vegetable peeler was the most available object to be had in the bathroom. The vegetable peeler became stuck, as these things tend to do. However, this was the kind with slits in the plastic, and his formerly prolapsed hemorrhoid tissue protruded into the slits, making it impossible to remove, also cutting off blood supply, which made them necrotic by the time we went to the OR. What kills me is that his next move to try to remove this object from his anus was to try to cut it out with scissors. OMG. It was horrible. A jagged piece of plastic wedged in, horrifying and, indeed, quite memorable. Worked with an ex-paramedic who told me a guy was cleaning his son's room while nude because his only set of clothes were in to wash while his son was at school, slipped on a sock and ended up getting Buzz Lightyear stuck up his ass. I asked the important question, of course, were the wings extended? He didn't answer, but we both rocked with laughter. Without reading any other comments, I will say that the overwhelming excuse my medical student roommates and myself, who are all now doctors, trained in Philadelphia, have heard is, "I fell on it. That's it. Nothing else." I once saw a dude with 2 dildos in his ass because he fell on the first one and tried to get it out with the second one. Philly strong. I've got this one. Not a doctor but triage. Guy comes in, walking, kinda awkwardly. Doesn't take a seat. When it's his turn, he's called up to triage and again, refuses to sit. "What brings you in today?" I said. I've lost a glass. You know, like a tumbler. Shuffles. "Okay, so, why are you here?" "Well, we had a party that got out of hand last night. I was cleaning the house this morning and I noticed one of my drinks glasses was missing. And I think it might be up my ass." That's it as far as explanation, but sure enough, there it was on X-ray. Rim side first, so after it disappeared up his asshole, it basically filled itself with shit. Now, anytime people that know the story ask if I've seen something they've lost, I ask if they've checked their asshole. A light bulb. You could always tell when someone came into the ER with something lodged in their rectum because everyone would be standing around looking at the X-ray. It was still in perfect light bulb shape. I have no idea how the patient got it up there without breaking it. Friend is a stomach surgeon, so always gets called in to pull things out of asses. He has loads of stories, but the one I remember is a guy who had a glass ketchup bottle up his ass. He'd claimed to have returned home with his grocery shopping, realized he'd lost his keys, so put shopping down and attempted to climb through a high window. He slipped, fell backwards ass first onto his groceries and SHLUM. The ketchup bottle just shot up his hole. Ignore that guy was presumably not naked at time. After removing it at the hospital, my DR friend said, "That's strange. The ketchup you bought is only half full." I think the worst thing is that it suggests he was gonna eat the rest of it another time. Not a doctor, but I don't know that I'll have a chance to share this again. Growing up, there was an urban legend about a local bloke that had to have a butternut pumpkin squash removed from his ass. Fast forward 25 years and I'm reading the book written by my dad's liver specialist, and lo and behold, it wasn't a legend. In fact, an entire chapter was dedicated to gentlemen with foreign objects needing removal from ass and bladder. I once had to take a guy to the OR to remove a cucumber from his rectum since it had migrated up further than could be extracted manually. I don't remember his excuse, but it had been in there for more than a week, and when we took it out it had started to pickle. Had a patient who showed up with his soon-to-be ex-wife. They were reconciling at a nearby motel. She convinced him that if he loved her, he would let her put a dildo in his ass. Only it wasn't a dildo, it was her vibrator without a flared base. Rule number 1 of anal play is make sure that it has a flared base. Rule number 2 is nothing sharp. The whole thing went up there and he couldn't get it out. I had to take it out under anesthesia. She felt awful and was crying the whole time. He was a very blue-collar, normal dude and she was dressed in very fancy clothes. An unlikely match in my mind. He was just happy that they were at my urban hospital and not the uppity town about 15 miles away where they lived. I often wonder what became of them and their marriage. 20 years ago, an ex was an ER nurse. A guy came in with a magic mushroom air freshener stuck up in there. He was embarrassed, and did not even attempt to explain it. She said that when the doctor got it out, he said, "Funny. It doesn't smell pine fresh." And everybody laughed. I am kind of surprised that didn't lead to a lawsuit. My grandmother used to be an ER nurse. Apparently back in the day, these kinds of stories were shared over fax. A hospital, in network, had a story about a patient CC was abdominal distress. Radiograph reveal odd radiopacities in pairs about 3/4 of an inch apart. Docs counted 3 to 4 pairs, couldn't figure out what it was. Exploratory surgery resulted in 4 Barbie doll heads in the patient's large intestine. After the discovery, patient stated that he had a fetish. He swallowed Barbie heads because he liked the way the hair felt on the way out. The radiopacities were the doll eyes. Apparently there used to be metal in the paint or something. Top comment after reading facts: Barbies are expensive. Did he recycle? So friends, what's your comment? Do let us know your feedback. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. And turn on the bell icon to get more Reddit delicious video for your daily Reddit dose.